are we doing? Okay. I think we should be online now. I'm just waiting to confirm. Can you guys see us? If you guys can see us in the live chat, let us know. All right, yeah, I can see myself now. All right, so we are online. Guys, thank you very much for everyone that's live here today watching us. Today I have another great episode for you. And I'm welcoming back to the show someone who I really enjoyed talking to the last time around. So, guys, please welcome to the show Niko House. Niko, welcome.
Hey man, what's going on? I appreciate you having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And first of all, thanks for taking time out of your 4th of July holiday to try and talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. To be honest with you, most people just drink and barbecue.
Yeah.
But this is the holiday where America's supposed to pretend like we're independent from Great Britain. So it's kind of like a practical joke at this point. Congratulations, by the way, on the 100K, man. It's pretty
Thanks, man.
huge.
Thank
Did
you.
you get your play button yet?
I didn't get nothing from YouTube. I didn't even get an email from YouTube, so I don't know. I
Really?
don't know how that works. Yeah.
That's weird. You're supposed to get a play button. They're supposed to send that off like didn't you hit that like last month?
Yeah, I hit it like what 2 weeks ago, I think.
Oh,
So
2 weeks ago. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So maybe you got a little bit. You got a little bit. They got to probably process it to make sure it
yeah,
sticks.
yeah. I think
So,
so. I think so.
well,
I think they're gonna wait
congratulations, man.
for.
That's
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. I think they're gonna wait for for me to hit like 104, 105 till they know it's like a legit thing, and then they'll probably,
yeah.
yeah, that's when they'll probably like
They got to see.
realize
They
it.
want to see if they're going to screw you over first.
Yeah, exactly.
Force some of your people to unsubscribe.
Yeah,
That's always
yeah,
fun.
yeah, for sure. So, so we're gonna talk, guys, today with Nico about the Democratic debates that happened. There was two that happened very recently. Some very interesting performances, some not so interesting performances, some very interesting things, some not so interesting things. We're gonna try and talk about as much as we can. But before we get into the specifics, Nico, what did you think about the debates, like overall? What was your overall impression of the debates?
My overall impression of the debates is that it would have been way more entertaining and way more substantive if Fox News hosted the debates.
Do you really think so?
This was, yeah, man, because it was a bunch of identity politics. It was a bunch of gotcha moments or attempted gotcha moments. They didn't get to delve into the policies. They weren't trying to hold everybody accountable. Why do you think that they refused to allow any of the Democratic candidates to go on a debate hosted by Fox? Which, by the way, this is the first time that this has happened. They're like, if Fox wants to host a debate, they get part of that revenue share.
Oh, right.
So yeah, and it's a different type of revenue share, and it's going to be probably more because the conservatives are going to tune in, and the Democrats are going to tune in specifically because they want to see their Democrats, and the conservatives want to watch Fox to make fun of them. So, but they won't do that, and the reason why is because Kamala, that nonsense that she pulled with Biden, where
Yeah.
I was that little girl on the bus. First of all, she probably would have been immediately challenged because Kamala came from a rich area. Her
Yeah.
mother was of a very high caste from India. Her family was rich. She was a professor at Berkeley. Her dad was wealthy, also professor at Berkeley. They lived in one of the nicest areas of Berkeley. So if she was part of the busing program, it wouldn't have been in the way that she's claiming it would be. It would be like the black kids who are of a working class were getting bused to her
Right.
neighborhood, not her getting bused the other way around.
Right.
Or her record as an attorney general that would have been challenged by Fox News, was not and has not been challenged by MSNBC or CNN. These things that really separate our candidates that will get brought up in the general election would get brought up in a Fox News debate. But they don't get brought up now, which is why the same thing was going to happen to whoever the nominee is after they cheat, because that's going to probably be what happens. The same thing that happened to Hillary. Hillary
Right.
went basically unchallenged for 6, 7 months. She goes up against Trump and get throttled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was very interesting because it was very clear. Well, at least that's what I got the indication, that it was very clear that the channel that was hosting the debate and the people that were hosting the debate or conducting the debate had already picked certain favorites. Like they already knew that they liked some people, and they're gonna try and focus on those people as much as they could, which is kind of antithetical to the debate that you're trying to organize, where you're trying at least that everybody gets a fair shake.
absolutely. it basically became a Warren and Kamala showcase. That's basically what it became. Did you hear the very first question they asked Elizabeth Warren?
What was that?
The very first question they asked Elizabeth Warren was, Elizabeth Warren, you've introduced a lot of new plans since you've announced deregulation, holding Wall Street accountable, Medicare for all, anti-corruption law. Bro, start reading the list of her plans.
It's like achievement list.
Yeah, which are ironically enough plans that either Bernie or Tulsi have introduced.
Right.
Like, for example, obviously the Medicare for all is something that both Bernie and Tulsi have advocated for their entire careers. The anti-corruption legislation, which I didn't even catch on to till somebody actually educated me on this, because Tulsi does so damn much that it's hard to keep up. She actually has an amendment called the We the People Amendment, which would completely take big money out of politics and separate corporations from government. That was actually Tulsi's idea. And it's actually already been introduced, and that's why Warren decided to introduce the quote-unquote anti-corruption legislation, which is utter trash, by the way. And so that was the first question. And then they say, how are you going to pay for it? And then Elizabeth Warren, she's an idiot, but she's also very studious. She knows how to study other people's policies and other people's questions and how people react to those questions. And so she goes on to say, well, we have all this money for wars and for tax breaks and, things like the things that Bernie or Tulsi have been saying this entire time. And so it's basically a setup question. Well, Kamala, like the whole, I'm the only black woman on stage, I want to speak about this. Like, really, bruh?
Yeah.
First of all, they were going to let you speak, but she had to make a spectacle. Which is funny because Rachel even said it. She's like, well, I was going to let you speak anyway, but you can get 30 seconds now, and then we'll let him answer, then you can get the rest of your time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because Elizabeth Warren's stance, or Elizabeth Warren during the debates, was very interesting because it almost felt like Elizabeth Warren was being presented as sort of like a saner, more toned down, more watered down, like Bernie alternative. Like she's basically Bernie, but like more watered down and nicer, and something that's more palatable to the rest of the country.
Yeah, and it's crazy because and this is something that you see a lot in American culture, where basically white women are kind of coddled, like in a patriarchal way. They're protected. So with the viciousness that you've seen Tulsi attacked with, even if you were correct about Elizabeth Warren, you can never attack her with that same type of veracity, because they're like, oh, well, she's nice. She reminds them of their old little grandma. Like, you're not allowed to be mean to her.
Right.
She's wrong on every single issue.
The relatable grandma that drinks beer on a live stream, that relatable grandma that...
She's projected onto, anybody paying attention. Obviously, some of us can see through that, but it does make the job of holding her accountable a little bit more difficult, because people take it personally because they like her personally. Although anybody who claims to be Native American and then completely abandons the indigenous as standing rock, it's hard for me to like you as a person after that.
That's fair.
But that's what they, and it was in an interesting plot twist. Kamala didn't get that type of pass when she first announced, and it was clear she was full of shit. Which once again goes to like there's clearly a deeper issue with our discourse, that we can say the facts about Kamala and no matter how Kamala tries to spin it, people will automatically accept them. But with Warren, we can say the same facts about her, and the facts are there, they're evident. People are like, but man, I was really hoping she would progress. I was really hoping. Why were you hoping? Why was there so much hope with Elizabeth Warren?
What gave you that indication?
Then when we look at Tulsi, who's also another woman of color, people assumed that the attacks against her were correct, despite her not taking money, despite Bernie trusting her as a surrogate, despite her and Nina Turner being best friends, despite her constantly and regularly being anti-war, despite her reaching out to independent media, taking interviews where you can ask her any questions. Hell, in our very first interview, I asked her why was she on the Council of Foreign Relations. No other presidential candidate would allow that question to be asked. They would vet beforehand. I asked her about the Israel-Palestine conflict. No other presidential candidate would have responded so candidly. I asked her about her trip to Syria, and she was giving me details that I didn't even know existed. Yet people still want her to improve. And the moment she makes a misstep, they're like, "Oh, see, we told you."
Got her.
But with Elizabeth Warren, they
Yeah.
have excuses every time she makes a misstep.
Yeah.
So it's there's clearly a deeper issue that's going on that I think needs to be addressed. But for now, we just have to kind of power through the, I guess what the preconceived notion that we have about people. Like, just because you're a little white grandma doesn't mean that you're altruistic in your intentions.
Right.
And just because you're a Polynesian Samoan woman who's in the military doesn't mean you're a damn war hawk.
Right. Yeah, it was very interesting because it's interesting for me to learn about what is important to people in these debates. So when you're looking at these 2019 debates, when you're trying to find the 2019 Democratic candidate that's going to run for president, what do you think in these debates is the most important thing that the general public wants to know about?
So there's two ways to measure that. Mm-hmm. What is it going to take to be the winner of that debate, and what is actually the most important thing?
Okay.
So the first thing is, how do you win the debate? This is 2019, so things were a little bit different. I always say if Mike Gravel ran in 2019, if he was 20 years younger and ran in 2019, Matt Gravel would have ran away with this election. Mm. And the reason I say that is because you need a 25 to 30 second soundbite that can codify accurately who you are, what you're about, what you plan on doing. And for some people, it was easier to get that soundbite. For others, it was a little bit more difficult. For example, Tulsi, she didn't get that opportunity. Well, she had to, where they try to put her in, well, what do you think about equal pay for women, Tulsi? What the fuck do you think about it, bro? Like, and she completely, masterfully was like, look, first of all, before we start talking about equal pay for women, how about we stop spending their fucking money on unnecessary wars? How about that? Like, which that was brilliant. And then, of course, there was the exchange with her and Tim Ryan, where she got to just, she kneecapped that man. He was looking like he really did. Fly after the debates.
Yeah. He looked like a little baby that had been slapped. Yeah, he really did.
Yeah, and because of that, look what happened. Yeah. Almost every major media or every major publication, websites, major polls, and the Google search shows she won that debate off of one exchange. They say Kamala won that debate off of one exchange with her and Biden. But I don't think she won it. I actually think Marianne Williamson won it because she was surviving, right? Her goal was to save her campaign because it was flailing at that point. So she was no holds barred. Marianne Williamson, nobody knew who she was until that day. Yeah. So people who love her, people who may have laughed at her performance, at the end of the day, you were watching, you were entertained, you were searching her name, and eventually, if you search her name enough, you'll see her policies. Right. And her policies are pretty damn good. And so that was a big thing. So basically, getting that soundbite is the way you win the debate. But the thing that people are looking for, the thing that will make people basically start donating to your campaign, start volunteering for you, something that I believe Andrew Yang displayed, right. Bernie and Tulsi displayed, and Marianne Williamson also displayed it, right. Which is, are you genuine? I think that people were looking for whether or not the establishment was showing favoritism towards you. Right. Because it was clearly the have and the have-nots, and when it came to the time that was allotted to speak. And how well do you understand your policies? Can you explain them in detail? I think that Yang and Tulsi did fantastic on this. And then basically, how much conviction do you have? Right. Are you passionate about all of your policies? And are you well-rounded? Right. I think that Tulsi did great on that. Marianne Williamson did great on that. Yang did great on that. And this is actually the first time I thought Bernie could have done better in that regard. Because he didn't really get into the details of his Medicare for all. He just kind of kept giving his thumping speech about why it's so important, and how we defeat the the billionaires, which is all good. But when everyone else is campaigning on your legislation, campaigning on your message, you got to be able to differentiate yourself. And that's why I thought it was cool whenever Marianne Williamson was like, okay, they're going to talk about Medicare for all. Everybody's going to pretend like they love it. And so I'm going to have to figure out a way to undercut them and show that I am for Medicare for all, but I'm about getting to the foundation of the issues. And so that was a big step for her. That's why, once again, as goofy as people may think she sounded, because she's kind of like, she's a character, to say the least. but we need more. She understands what we're in right now. This is not a political election.
Right.
We're in a reality TV show, whether people like it or not. That's why I laugh when people talk about the notion of impeaching Trump. Anybody who knows politics knows that would be the worst mistake that this country has ever made. You're handing him 4 more years.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee. I don't care who you run next after him, because you're going to spend the next 4 years giving him how much television time to prove what? Okay, he's a corrupt businessman. People do that before they elected him. You know, to prove what? Russiagate was already shot to shit, and it'll basically be more television time to campaign for Trump to campaign. That's what it would be for free. They will be, well, what do you think about this? Here's why they're attacking me, because I made America great again. I did this, I did that. They're always trying to, the establishment hates me. That's why they're trying to get me out. It would be free campaign time. It's idiotic. But people are thinking about their careers rather than what's best for the country. And so, but Marianne Williamson, understanding this, she put on a show. And she was rewarded because of that.
Yeah,
So the 2 things that really distinguish people are, can you get that soundbite? And can you show that you have an understanding of your policies, have the conviction to get those policies passed, and that you are passionate about these issues, not just kind of reading from a note card because you think that's what people want to hear.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that happened that made me chuckle a little bit was that whole the exchange between Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro, and when Beto O'Rourke started speaking in Spanish, and they spent a lot of time talking about immigration, and I was watching that and I was thinking, like, do these people think that this is the most important issue to the United States? Like, is that what you guys think?
They don't believe that. They don't believe it at all. And I love what Tusli said. I think she said it during the debates, but I know she said it when she was at the immigration detention center the next day. She straight up said, look, we've known the problem.
Yeah.
And every time I try to work with either side to actually fix the problem, they don't want to do anything about it. She knows it's an important issue. Does she think it's the most important issue to the United States? She thinks that her anti-war message is. Her anti-war message really seeks its claws into every single one of these issues. And whenever everybody else talks, kids in cages, kids in cages, kids in cages. I was surprised enough to hear that the moderators were like, a lot of these policies did start under Obama. And whenever they said that, we kind of all looked at it like, oh my God, I can't believe they said something like that. Because it's true. It's true. So why are we addressing, at least at bare minimum, the policies that got us here?
Right.
That Trump has been able to take advantage of? Why do we keep having these same people who are on this debate stage voting to allocate money to these organizations? Like they just did. They literally just did that. Not necessarily these people on the debate stage, but the Democrats did, 4 or 5 days ago, or 4 or 5 days before the debate? Or is it the day of? It's either the day before, or the day before that, where luckily Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and AOC realized, like, this is bullshit. This is pork barrel to give the DHS and ICE more money. To do what? I've been to the detention center, bro. It's tense. Like, it literally is tense. And it's a for-profit detention. So why are we not introducing legislation to ban for-profit detention centers?
Right.
Why are we not introducing amendments to repeal these laws that allow kids to be separated from their family on semantics? So because the mother isn't there, for example, you're there with your aunt, you're there with your grandmother, because maybe your mother got killed by a gang, and in your country they're your legal guardian. Because you say the word tia or tío or abuela instead of mom, they're like, oh, we have to separate you. Yeah. And you can't have any. So like, these are the things that we should be talking about. Unfortunately, you are correct. Most of the country doesn't really care. And it's sad to say it, but I'm a realist when it comes to my activism, because these are things that I activate for. And so a lot of that is bringing awareness to just how real the issues are. Like the fact that the detention center here in Miami, they make $750 per day per kid. That's more than what they make on prisoners. These are the things that we should be discussing, not whether or not it's horrible that kids are in cages. We know it's horrible that kids are in cages. But the way that they were framing the issue of immigration was very deceptive, and it was very divisive. Like people, like why are you speaking Spanish?
Yeah.
For one, why are we speaking Spanish as if those are the only people who are harmed,
Yeah.
or that migrate here, that are
Yeah.
harmed by our foreign policy that causes them to migrate here.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, it's because our country has been conditioned to believe that the only immigrants that exist are,
Spanish
they're
speaking
in
immigrants.
or Spanish speaking, or they're from Guatemala or
Yeah.
Honduras, these type of countries, which also makes you wonder and it's because once again we're conditioned to believe that.
Yeah.
Why? Because these are the people you're least likely to care about.
Yeah.
These are the people who could affect the outcome of an election. These are the people who have brought into the forefront, would tell you about the regime change that we've been implementing in the covert operations we've been conducting in South America and Central America.
Right.
And so you have to basically demonize them on the onset so that they don't get a chance to have these conversations. And the way you do that is by conditioning people to believe that the problem is solely surrounded by them and what they're trying to take from us, rather than the entire conversation. Because we have Somali and Sudanese immigrants all over Vermont, Wyoming,
Minnesota.
Minnesota is a big one for
Minnesota's
Ethiopia.
a big one.
So, like, in all the countries that we've ravaged through in Africa, a lot of those refugees are here, but you
Yeah.
never hear about them for, once again, the same reason. People think Ilhan Omar came out of nowhere, but if you know anything about the demographics of the area, it was almost a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Because that's what that area is. But these are the stories that don't get told. And so when they try to pretend like South American immigration is the main issue that we should be discussing, like, no, we need to be discussing why people feel that in order for them to have a chance at a decent livelihood, they have to leave their home, leave their family, leave the language they're comfortable speaking, leave their network, leave their culture, and basically implant themselves in another country, the country that basically caused the problems, just so they feel like they have a chance of survival. Those are the conversations we need to have, but those aren't the conversations that the Democrats are trying to have because, well, money that can be raised off of immigration, man.
Yeah, it's strange because they were talking about, you were talking about the whole kids in cages thing, and I don't think there's genuinely anyone in the United States that wants these kids to be in cages. I would really struggle to find someone who genuinely feels like, yeah, put these kids in cages.
There are
So I
some
think
people in the South. There are some people in the South,
I'm
but
sure
they're
there
like
might be,
a weird
but
minority. They're like a minority.
that's exactly what I'm saying. That's a very tiny minority that genuinely wants these people to be put in cages. But I'm thinking there has to be a better way to have a conversation around it, rather than saying that, hey, I'm gonna attack you, and the solution to kids in cages is letting literally everyone in, and then giving all of those people health insurance. And I feel like there's got to be a middle ground. It's the way this debate
Well,
happened was that there's just no middle ground.
I do want to say that I don't think that anyone said that they're letting everyone in.
Right.
That was something that was perpetuated by Fox News, but nobody said that. And there's always a fake ass open borders debate that nobody actually started. I don't believe in open borders. Why would I believe in that? I believe that the problem with America is that we pretend that every other country is open border for us. So why would I want that for our country? I believe in sovereignty. I believe that people should be able to enjoy your culture, but you should be able to have a limit to just how much they get to enjoy your stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that should be up to the country. So the open borders debate is not a real debate. Nobody advocates for that. It's silly. And plus, if you know anything about our foreign policy, you do not want that. There are a lot of people who want payback. In all seriousness. So, but I do agree. The fake debates is what's derailing the conversation, and it's what pisses everybody off. Not just conservatives. Conservatives will get. Some like conservatives like, oh man, why are we worried about immigrants' health care? Like, that was a divisive question. Like, if you know anything about Medicare for all, and 70% of the country is okay with Medicare for all, it would actually cover immigrants. It would. It would have no choice because of the way the system is set up. That's okay. You're going to get your health care too. But once again, that's nuance. They don't talk. They ask the question, would you give undocumented immigrants health care? If you know anything about the legislation that they're pushing, you already knew that.
Yeah.
But they asked it to basically demonize people. They wanted to create divisiveness, to try and demonize a candidate who doesn't raise their hand. But also, play on identity politics to pretend like the Democratic Party is the altruistic, well-meaning party, while the Republican Party is a bunch of evil people. And I know a lot of conservatives, man, that like they're on the same. They feel the same way I do. Can we
Yeah.
just have some comprehensive immigration reform? Let's have
Yeah.
a real that doesn't evolve. Basically, if you have 200,000 in assets, you get automatic citizenship
Yeah.
because we want the
It's weird,
right
isn't
type of
it?
immigrants.
It's almost like there are people on both sides of the aisle that would rather have the problem continue rather than solve the problem, because if they solve the problem, then they have nothing to profit off of. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I could remember what the term was, but basically they're hustlers of sadness
Yeah.
in this, and you see people profit off of this hell in our industry, where people I'm not gonna say any names, but basically for when it comes to the black crime or black people getting shot by police officers in the criminal justice system and things like that. They've never really offer solutions, but they'll cover every single police shooting because in the outrage that comes from that, because it's profitable
Yeah.
to do so. And you always get to pretend like you're about to introduce a solution, but then when you don't, people forget that you're about to because they move on to the next thing really fast. It's outrage culture.
Yeah.
And it's sad to me that that's kind of the place that we're in right now. But I've seen it when it comes to race issues. I've seen when it comes to immigration issues. I've seen it when it comes to even healthcare. I've seen it when it comes to anti-war, where you see people who have to maintain a narrative about a certain person. They'll say, "Well, I'm anti-war. I'm anti-intervention. I don't want to invade the country, but Assad is a dictator
Yeah.
or Maduro is a dictator," because if they just completely dedicate themselves to the anti-war message, then they can't follow the media narratives, the mainstream narratives that give them so much, viewership. And it makes them actually have to do research and analysis. Can you believe that? A lot of people are scared of that.
It seems like it. It really does seem like it. And
They're
I wanna-
terrified. They're
Yeah.
terrified. I've been trying to get the left to debate me. There was one person on the left that would debate me. His name was Robbie Martin, who was Abby Martin's older brother, and it was about Tulsi. But other than that, the only people who are brave enough to debate me are the people on the right. Those people specifically were a little bit kooky, to say the least, but because they wanted viewership for their channel, which I didn't really care about. But whenever people try to talk shit and claim the high ground when it comes to the issues that are supposedly important to the left, I'm like, you're wrong. We can debate it. Let's go. All of a sudden, radio silence. I don't hear anybody because they know that they can play off the duopoly, the idea that all Republicans are evil, all Democrats are great. The left is always right. The right is always wrong. And instead of having the nuanced discussion that we need to get things done, they dodge. They point fingers. They call out people like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro when we know they're not honest actors. We know they're not acting in good faith.
Yeah.
So why are you so concerned about debating them?
Yeah.
But when somebody wants to have a healthy debate to educate the entire left, talk about strategies moving forward, and somebody who has experience at that, like I have experience in politics. Hell, if anybody knows anything about me, people knew me when I had a show. Nina Turner, when I first started my show, I had it for about 2 years. Nina Turner told me, "Oh wow, I didn't know you had a show." Me and Nina had been a friend of mine and a friend of a few of my friends for quite some time, but she only knew me as an activist
Right.
and an organizer. She didn't know I had a show until 2 years after we met for the first time.
Wow.
So like that's what I do, and that's what I was primarily known for. And so when I'm trying to have these conversations so that we can all grow, that they can get their messages correct, they can get their strategy that because they're reaching hundreds of thousands of millions of people a month. We need to make sure we're in unison, and we need to have open discussions when we're trying to figure out which direction is the right direction to take.
Yeah.
They always dodge because it's not about solving the problems for a lot of these people. It's about pretending like you're right without actually doing anything about it.
Yeah, it really is. And coming back to one of the things that you were talking about, with in terms of one of these candidates, whoever becomes the Democratic candidate eventually, they will have to come up against Donald Trump, and to win they would have to beat Donald Trump. And the interesting thing in this debate was nobody really I don't think anybody apart from I'd say a couple of people, particularly Tulsi, had a strategy which would actually end up defeating Trump. What I mean by that is, if you look at some of the if you look at some of the things that people like about Trump and people don't like about Trump, particularly people that support him, you say, "Oh, Trump's a racist." People that voted for him don't really care about that much. Oh, he's brash. He doesn't speak in a presidential manner. People that voted for him don't really care about that stuff. Oh, he said so and so to so and so, and he disrespected women. Sure, but the thing is, on the ground, people didn't really seem to care about that stuff. What do people care about right now? When you hear criticism of Donald Trump, from the people that supported him, from the people that voted for him, what is the biggest one that you hear? That, oh, he talked about draining the swamp. He said, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to get all those slimy snakes out, and he didn't do that. In fact,
Yeah.
the swamp got a little bit swampier. The people that, the people that have gotten the United States into all those disastrous wars over the past couple of decades, they're still there right now, heading up his foreign policy right now.
Exactly.
So,
And now that's so true. That's so true.
and so Tulsi came out and she said, man, the anti-interventionist message, and that is why her message resonates with so many people. One of the criticisms that I read about her was that, oh, look at all these right-wingers that are supporting Tulsi, so she must be bad. But do you understand why they're actually going out of their way to support a Democrat candidate? Okay, Ann Coulter may be a terrible person. Sure, I'll give you that. But why did she say that, well, Trump is not doing what we wanted, what we elected Trump for, but Tulsi is actually openly talking about it? Why is she getting that support? Are you not realizing that here's a candidate that's fighting as a Democrat but has the potential to get bipartisan support, something that's very bloody rare in America?
Yeah, and I mean, and listen, this Tulsi is the type of candidate that could go into a deep red state and win.
That's what, yeah.
And like and people think and if you know it, I know I study electoral politics a lot because of I'm primarily an election integrity activist, and so if you know anything about electoral politics, you know that the way you can win is to prove you're a fighter, and you're going to be dealing with identitarians in the area. But if you can't be put into a box, right? If you don't play the identity politic game, which Tulsi absolutely does not, then you can win. And then if you're willing to call the enemy or the adversary out by name, that's also another big thing to them. These are all things that people haven't really paid attention to that helped Trump win. Was him calling out Hillary Clinton by name, talking about NAFTA, how it was a disastrous trade deal, that NATO wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, calling TPP out and the people who orchestrated and all these things, bringing Bill Clinton's sexual assault victims to the stage and calling Bill Clinton out by name. You're like, but you're not, now you care about sexual assault. Well, look at what your husband did and you shame them. It's like, these are things. Now, granted, Tulsi's a little bit different on how she goes about doing these things, but she damn near does the exact same things, but with an actual honest motive. And when we're talking about, for example, and it's effective too, by the way, because Tulsi actually made her very first question, where she pivoted away from what they were trying to box her into. She starts calling out Bolton and Pompeo by name, a name that many people may be unfamiliar with if you're not into politics as religiously as we are. And then what does she do the next day? What does Elizabeth Warren do the next day? Literally the next day on Twitter. Almost takes Tulsi's words verbatim, word for word. I covered this shit. Like, bro, took the word chicken out of chicken hawks and just said hawks, and that was basically the only difference.
Wow.
And the reason why is because that type of message resonates.
Yeah.
It's a way to call out Trump when it comes to policies, when it comes to consistency, when it comes to keeping his promises. Not attacking him over identity politics. Not bad things are bad, good things are good. He's a buffoon, and all the colorful adjectives they use to describe him.
People don't care.
Like they didn't care before. Why do they think people would care now?
Yeah.
People do not. People really underestimate. Like, rich men have been able to get away with so much in this damn country with nobody caring.
Everywhere, dude.
They think, yeah, right? They think that he already won.
Yeah.
He won when he survived a porn star. He survived $1 billion getting spent to beat him.
Yeah.
He survived saying he was going to pull out of Syria and then completely changing his mind. bombed Syria. Without investigation, turned out the attacks were fake. He survived that. He survived trying to spark off a war with Iran and then reneging. He survived Russiagate. He survived 8 bankruptcies, or is it 8? Was it 8? I think it was 8. He survived 8. He survived lying about his net worth. It turned out he's really like worth 700 million rather than 8 billion. He survived Jeffrey Epstein and his name being seen on the same ledger as Bill Clinton.
Right.
Going to the Lolita Express. Like, bro, I mean, the list really does go on. And guess what? The sexual assault allegations, the rape allegations, survived all of it. And what, y'all think that an impeachment is going to help? Yeah. You think that attacking his personality is going to help? I hate to break it to you, but like a lot of the country is kind of like Trump. They're not all Harvard graduates. They're not Yale graduates. They're not, these elitists who are ambitious and clout and chasing clout, trying to climb to the highest ladder. Trump has displayed the ability to appeal to the least common denominator of our society. And that's the primary voter base. And Tulsi has begun to tap into that in her own way, where she isn't braggadocious or verbose. She's like, look, I don't have to do all that. I don't have to be demonstrative and all that good shit. I'm just going to straight talk and tell her like it is. And it's been working for her. But the Democrats, they know it's working, actually. They know it's working.
Do you think they really do? If they do, why are they making the same mistake again?
Oh, bro, let me tell you about Tulsi. Tulsi's a little problematic for them. Right. She's an enigma. She's something we've never seen before. Because so Howard Dean was progressive. Then the moment they offered him a position, it's done. Al Gore, progressive, offered him a position, forgets about everything the Democratic Party did to him. We've seen this over and over and over again. You were either a progressive and you got co-opted, or you were establishment. Or you were always an outsider, but you get completely shut out. Yeah. Tulsi's different. Tulsi is part of the Council of Foreign Relations, although her term is almost up. She's been an intricate part of the establishment, vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, speaking at the Democratic National Convention. All these things that okay, this is the person who's about to be presidential candidate. Had all of it. Yeah. Not on a whim, but when she saw exactly what the party was, because they truly revealed themselves in a way they couldn't hide it anymore in 2016, she was like, yeah, fuck this. I'm not going to be part of this. And then not only that, but then when she started, the more information she got as we were all waking up, she was actually waking up alongside us. So she's starting to use all of the knowledge that she had gathered as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, as a member of the Intelligence Committee, a current member of the military, Armed Services Committee. Like, she has all this information and she's matched up with things that she's learning, and she's like, oh, y'all are really full of shit. Yeah. She has all of the secrets. They can't try to buy her off. They can't use her legacy against her. She barely got a chance to build one, and she doesn't give a shit about it. So when you have someone who is the smartest person in the room 98% of the time, and she's not on your side, but she has the ability she has access to almost anything and everything that would expose you, that's a danger. And she's young, and she's beautiful, and she has a coalition made up of the left and the right, and this goes on. And like, she's so bold, and she's like, hey, Bernie, I love you. And they're still friends. They still talk. But she understands the state of this world so much that she even recognized, Bernie, as much as I love you, you can't handle this. Yeah. It's not an insult against him. It's just that she just has that very unique experience and has gone through a unique type of adversity that has perfectly prepared her for this moment right now, and built up a very unique network that has perfectly prepared her for this moment right now. And it's her time. The problem is, they know it too. And that's why Inslee, you don't see smear articles coming out about Inslee. They say 1%, 2%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so if she only has that amount, why are y'all constantly writing smear articles against her?
Right. Dude, it was so interesting. Let me give you an example. There was Mother Jones, who's like this really left-leaning publication. BuzzFeed There was The Intercept. I told you about the Washington Post thing. I think I told you offline, but there was a Washington Post article about how she was absolutely the worst speaker or the worst performer in the debates. And you look at all these.
Not the guy speaking bad Spanish. Couldn't be him.
Yeah, yeah, I know, exactly. And BuzzFeed was like, oh my God, look at how these right wingers are celebrating, or the right wingers are supporting Tulsi Gabbard, so she must be horrible. Not
You know what's
looking
crazy about
into.
that? BuzzFeed, the night of, actually was celebrating Tulsi.
That's so, yeah, again, that's so weird to me because I saw this article like 2 days after the debates, and I was like, did you bother to look into why right wingers are supporting her? Did you bother to look into what they were actually supporting her about? Or did you just was like, okay, right winger, bad, 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 you know?
The same party that's saying they want to run Biden because they need crossover appeal.
I mean, come on, yeah, what
Right?
a joke that is.
It's like, I thought that you want a crossover appeal. You literally have the golden ticket. Tulsi has the potential to win all 50 states.
She does, man.
That's
She,
not an exaggeration.
yeah,
They know this.
Yeah.
They are aware of this. Tulsi, the thing that people have not caught on to yet, I'll talk about it on my channel, but a lot of people haven't caught on to it, is that you notice that Trump, the people that he is not there, that he is not intimidated by, he is a bully. So he goes after him. He knows that Bernie, as much as we love Bernie at this point, not in 2016, but at this point, would be hard to beat Trump because the man has gotten more popular. The economy, it hasn't gotten better, but the raw fake numbers, that's why I call them, because they're made to make it look like if corporations are doing well, then the country is doing well. They show that the country is better economically. The stock markets have jumped up. Like, all these things work to Trump's advantage. Unemployment has dropped. Not really, but it looks like it. Things like that all play a part into whether or not Bernie can win. And things like dirty words, socialism, you're a socialist, da 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 da. Whereas and then on top of that, Bernie's lack of knowledge and intuition on foreign policy will also get exposed.
yeah,
Because he can't confidently go toe to toe with Trump on foreign policy,
yeah,
and all you can point to is getting it right in Iraq. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, writing was on the wall there. We knew that was bullshit, but you got it wrong, and when you voted for covert operations in Kosovo, you voted for covert operations in Turkey, Syria. You voted to bomb Gaza. Like, these are all things that eventually will come back to bite him in the ass.
yeah.
They will. As much as I love Bernie, he hasn't displayed the tuition since making those mistakes to show that he's better now.
Right.
Whereas Tulsi was able to predict exactly what was going to happen in Iran a month beforehand, or with the Iran situation. On ABC, on George Stephanopoulos' show, she said, I don't buy any of the narrative that are being put out by the Trump administration. They are trying to manufacture consent and give us a reason to go to war with Iran. Good God Almighty, literally a month later, that is exactly what was happening. We almost ended up in war.
Right.
The way she said it would happen.
Right. It was so funny. I wonder if you saw that whole thing. Sorry, I wonder if you saw that whole thing where they were talking to Trump about like what happened with the whole Iran situation, and it was like, oh yeah, I asked the generals how many people are gonna die, and the generals were like 150 people probably, and I was like, oh, that's too many. Whatever. I'm gonna say no. Well, what if tomorrow they're like, well, 150 people are gonna die, but the Iranian president called you a little punk? What if Trump goes like, yeah, all right, screw him. Let's go fight,
that's actually kind of what would happen.
Yeah.
That's honestly what would happen. Labeling something that Tulsi shone light on, when Trump labeled the Iranian army a terrorist organization. Like, these are things that Tulsi sees and understands. This means this is about to happen. This means that's about to happen next. This is how this is going to unfold. Things that very few people in this world can do unless you have a very unique set of experiences and just an innate intuition when it comes to these things. Right. And Tulsi's the only one in this entire race that has it. It's 50% of the fucking job, bro. Like, 50% of the job. And Bernie's like, I suck at foreign policy. Admitted it himself at his own town hall. Yeah. He admitted he's trash on foreign policy. Love him to death, but he's not good on foreign policy. He gets played by the intelligence community all the time. And then Tulsi doesn't get played by the intelligence community. It's the total opposite. She calls them out. She calls out the intelligence community because she knows they like to lie. Like, we already know that she's so good on domestic policy. This election, so election justice legislation has got passed on the 24th. This was her legislation. They're a little bit watered down, but it's still called the SAFE Act, which is what Tulsi originally called it. But they added the word federal. So hers was the Securing American Elections Act. They called it the Securing Americans Federal Elections Act. Almost took her wording verbatim, waited until she was out of the states because she had to be preparing for the debates, and they knew that. Or waited until she was out of D.C., conducted all the business behind her back, introduced amendments, got it voted on, got it passed, all within 24 hours. This is insane for Congress, if anybody knows anything about Congress. It was her legislation. And then it was done on the low to such a degree that nobody knew about it. Nobody in her policy team knew about it. Nobody, like, she didn't even know about it. She's talking on Bill Barr on Friday,
Right.
not even realizing that her legislation got passed under her nose.
Right.
So they gave no attention to it this entire time. Introduced it twice now, pretending like it wasn't necessary. And then the moment she leaves the city, they pass her legislation.
That's insane, man. That's crazy.
Bro, hell, Ocasio-Cortez campaigned on the All Fossil Fuels Act, which is the most aggressive piece of climate change and environmental legislation ever introduced anywhere.
That's an interesting one, yeah. Yeah. Tell people a little bit about that, because the thing is, I feel like that was so blatant, because I feel like Tulsi had a climate change, and a proposal to fight climate change a lot before AOC even came on the scene. But it kind of got hijacked by her, either intentionally or unintentionally, or by the media. I don't know how it happened, but tell us the story about that.
It's starting to look like it was intentional. So basically what happened was the All Fossil Fuels Act. Tulsi first introduced it in 2017.
Right.
It was endorsed by over 400 climate change and environmental organizations. That is unheard of, because most of these legislations, whether we're talking about the Paris Accords or whether we're talking about the Green New Deal, they're just neoliberal, like, what do they call them? Like, basically, they're not, it's a neoliberal wet dream is what it is, where they're going to profit. The corporation's going to profit. It doesn't really change anything. But if you put green beside it and you put New Deal because of people's affinity with FDR, people will think it's doing the right thing. If you took a look at the legislation, I was immediately like, hold on, this isn't ban fracking. Okay, that's weird. This doesn't ban fossil fuels either.
Right.
That's weird also. This also doesn't talk about nuclear waste. And we have the whole Fukushima issue happening literally as we speak. Why the fuck is... And this looked like it was written by a 12th grader in the AP politics. Like, it didn't look like it was that complicated to write.
Right.
And it's merely a resolution. So I was like, whatever, let me see what happens. Let's see how it evolves. It's still a step forward, so I was okay with that. Didn't get passed, though. So Tulsi reintroduces the Off Act. And so I'm like, okay, so AOC, hello.
Yeah.
Hello. At this point, she's already been talking about Warren. She's already been talking about Bernie. But she's been mostly talking about Warren. And that's problematic already. So I'm thinking to myself, like, and I start going through the Off Act, starting to see that some of the best rhetoric in the legislation of the Green New Deal actually came almost verbatim from the Off Act.
Yeah.
Because AOC actually ran on the Off Act.
Right.
Like, she talked about Tulsi all the time when she was running.
Right.
She gets into Congress. Tulsi reintroduces the Off Act. Everybody in the Democratic Party, climate change is the most important thing we have to address. We want a Green New Deal. We want a Green New Deal. Tulsi's like, we have legislation that's right here. AOC takes Bernie with her to go speak about the Green New Deal. Elizabeth Warren at some point went to go speak about the Green New Deal. She even had a couple of other people from the establishment to go talk about the Green New Deal. Didn't talk to Tulsi once about this.
Yeah, that's the part that I found very weird.
And maybe she just doesn't want to talk about anybody else's legislation if they're presidential candidates. Thought that was wrong, because then a former fracking lobbyist who is now a fracking consultant, he's a representative out of California named, I think it's Zach Levin or Mike Levin. I want to say it's Zach Levin. From California, introduced legislation alongside Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand to make all cars electric in like 5 years. Problem with that legislation is it's a sleeper cell. It's basically, it would require fracking at an insane rate. to fill the fuel cells. That's why, of course, why would the donors of Kirsten Gillibrand and Kamala and Zach Levin let them pass that legislation or even introduce it,
Right.
unless it was, going to benefit the establishment in some way, form, or fashion, and that's what it came down to.
Right.
AOC celebrates this on her Twitter. I was like, oh, hell no. Nah.
Oh man.
So Kamala's name's attached to this. Gillibrand's name's attached to this. Levin's name's attached to this. It doesn't ban fracking. It just says electric cars. But when people think of electric vehicles, they think that zero emissions, right? Zero emissions, zero emissions. Zero emissions is like kind of a fake ass concept. Zero emissions doesn't do shit for the environments that are being destroyed in order to get zero emissions. Right. The purpose of zero emissions is so that the pollution doesn't become a problem, the ozone layer isn't harmed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then you're fracking. So like now you're just going to destroy our lakes, people's communities. See, nobody wants electric cars if that's what it's going to take, bro. And there are other ways to get that done. But of course, corporations box in the possibilities to the solution that best benefits them. AOC celebrates this.
Yeah.
And once again, I actually asked Tulsi at the Democratic convention in California. I said, "Yo, has she talked to you at all?" Nope, haven't heard from her at all. Since she won the Democratic primary. She even tweeted out to her, literally said, "Let's save the world together." Was shouting her out often. Won her general election. Nothing.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. It almost
sounds. Resolutions work, by the way.
Yeah.
Is OFF Act should be an extension of the Green New Deal resolution.
Yeah.
Because it bills, resolutions set up for bills.
Right.
But she doesn't want to talk about it, which makes it really, demands that you question her motives, especially when you start adding everything up. Silence on Julian Assange, silence on Chelsea Manning, never mentioning Tulsi's name as a progressive in this race, but constantly propping up Elizabeth Warren, knowing that the way the Democratic rules are set up, if Elizabeth Warren wins enough delegates and takes them away from Bernie, she's not giving the delegates to Bernie. She's going to give it to the establishment. Yeah. But we know who Tulsi would give her delegates to if it was time to make that decision. AOC is probably aware of this, doesn't care. Julian Castro, she gets props to. Julian fucking Castro, who nobody knows or cares about. But he did a great job.
Yeah.
Tulsi, most searched name on Google that night, and you couldn't say nothing about her.
Yeah, there seems to be this weird insecurity.
Just social climbing. One of my female friends actually described. It's been a while since I've seen Mean Girls, but she said it feels like this is me. Like that's what she said it feels like. Because it's not. This isn't just AOC who's displayed this type of behavior. It's people that, hell, one of them I actually consider a friend. Two of them I consider a friend. They just have this problem with her, and it's crazy because some of these females, bro, they actually don't like each other.
Weird.
Because of their political differences. Some are further left, some are more moderate, some are probably a little bit more neoliberal light. They all don't like each other, but they all hate Tulsi, and it's all for different reasons that contradict it doesn't make any sense. So it's got to be something deeper going on. I think it has to do with her age. Young, 38 years old is really young.
It's pretty young, yeah.
But her maturity, because anybody who joined the military knows, you age 5 years when you join the military.
Oh, 100%.
And of course, and then when you deploy and you're dealing with fixing people like every single day, bro, that's probably aged her another 5 years. So yes, she's 38 years old, but maturity-wise, she's probably closer to 47, 48. And it looks like it. And her maturity, the way she can handle these situations, especially if you've ever seen it in person, it's amazing. Because I'm like, my blood's boiling seeing some of the stuff that happens to her. And she laughs it off, kind of. Like, ain't no perfect.
So there's a question here from Boyne Flynn in the live chat, and they're wondering, within the sort of liberal progressive ecosystem, there's people who support a lot of different people. Like on YouTube, she's talking about like Niko supports Tulsi, Jordan Charitan, I don't know who that is, supports Bernie. Young Turks is clearly in support of the Elizabeth Warren. How are the progressives going to be able to come to some sort of a solution to be able to fight the Republicans?
Um, it depends if they actually want a solution or if they want to cheerlead. I've already explained the solution to people. A lot of people understand it now, but I probably want to have to do another video covering it. Elizabeth Warren could never beat Trump. I wouldn't want her to beat Trump anyway. That meeting with North Korea doesn't happen if Elizabeth Warren's in power. We're at war with Iran right now if Elizabeth Warren's in power. Maduro is overthrown if Elizabeth Warren's in power. Bolton and Pompeo are still in office, are still in their positions. Like, people don't understand that. She's absolutely abysmal on foreign policy. Kids in Gaza are getting bombed. Relations with India right now would probably start breaking down, to be completely honest with you, because most of these policies are more what Americans would consider quote unquote socialists. And Elizabeth Warren's a staunch capitalist who likes our current trade regulations because they benefit the corporation she works for. But with that being said, there's a solution. The solution is Bernie and Tulsi or Bernie, any combination of the two. And the reason why is because if you understand how the Democratic primary process works, you have to have 50% of all the delegates in the race in order to not go to the second round of the elections. And the reason why is because if you go to the second round of the election, superdelegates come into play, and we're fucked. They're going to pick what they want to pick. But if we get to the first round, Tulsi has 26%. Bernie has, for whatever reason, 29%. Or, even if Tulsi has 15%, and Tulsi has 28%, 30%, those delegates can be handed off from Tulsi to Bernie or vice versa. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
This actually happened with Martin O'Malley with Hillary Clinton. They made a little deal where he handed his delegates off. Now, they don't have to go where you tell them to.
Sure.
But if Bernie says do it, and then at the local, at the like delegate level, they have the conversations, and if you don't vote in the way that the candidate tells you, you have to give a whole explanation, and they don't necessarily have to take your word. Because one person says this is how many delegates are going to Bernie Sanders from this group. So basically, you can hand your delegates off. The moral of the story. There's only one person that'll hand their delegates off to Bernie. That's Tulsi. There's only one person that will hand their delegates off to Tulsi. That's Bernie. We have, between Bernie's fundraising and Tulsi's ability to unite the left and the right under a populist message that doesn't require identity politics to get her point across, but still achieve the same goals that Bernie wants to achieve, we could sweep these primaries. But people are so caught up in their cult of personality, defending people who shouldn't be defended. Like, Elizabeth Warren doesn't deserve to be defended at all. Right. People want to defend it. Attacking, perpetuating smears against Tulsi, for example, that are based off of some psychopath who's popped up by a pedophile who Tulsi's family exposed in Hawaii. That's where these smears originate from. Where you have people like Emma Vigilant from TYT saying that Tulsi is in a cult because she's Hindu. But I'm like, bro,
amazing.
Like, and I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not religious at all, but I'm like, bro, I don't know if you know this, but like, Catholics drink from the blood of Christ every Sunday and eat from the body of Christ. Right. That's a fucking cult. I'm just saying. Like, I get it. I don't ever judge people because I understand strongly. But I'm a very spiritual person. But I don't believe in the whole the religion thing. Yeah. And I know you're Hindu, and it's weird that we call Hindu a religion because it doesn't really follow the same principles as the Abrahamic religions. Yeah. I would even say that atheism is more religion than Hinduism a lot of the times because it's based off the sole idea that there's nothing there. Like that's kind of a religion, bro. You live your life based off of the idea that there's nothing there rather than trying to seek your own truth. Right. So when she starts saying that, I'm like, it's weird because you don't hear her attack other candidates who may be Catholic or who may be Christian for the same reasons because people will say, well, there are some people that from the Hindu, the Hare Krishna that were involved in human trafficking. I'm like, bruh, we gonna go there? Because the Catholic priest was just touching little boys like 3 months ago. Really? You know what I'm saying? Like, our Congress is passing legislation to make sure they can't be held accountable for this. That's like, incredible. Are we really gonna try and like compare shit? That's what I'm saying. But they get so caught up in these narratives and who my favorite person is and who has the biggest following, who I can gain the most from potentially if I'm on the right team, all that bullshit, instead of just saying this is a solution, this is a strategy, this is a solution. If we just do this, we can win. But that's unfortunately not how politics really works.
Yeah.
If I had, I am working actively to try and fix that before it's too late. I'm actually starting an anti-war nonprofit. It's going to be called Legalize Hope, and basically it's going to be cutting through the bullshit, building a populist movement comprised of both the left and the right, people who are just tired of the war and all the problems that come with it. We're going to be touching on everything from immigration, what are the real causes of immigration, to regime change in different areas around the country, or around the world, excuse me. We're going to be talking about big money in politics. Why do we have to even have an anti-war movement? Why? Because who's funding the politicians to speak in defense of these endless wars? It's the money that comes from the military-industrial complex. Educating people, re-educating people about the fact that companies like GE, Ford, GNC, they all were the reason that the Nazis were able to exist. They funded the entire operation. These are things that people don't know about. Right. But if they were aware of these things, how anti-war candidates have been shafted in the past, talking about Henry Wallace, for example, FDR's former vice president, who served with him 3 terms. On the 4th term, got screwed out of the election at the primary. Why? Because they knew what it meant if he was in. He was way more anti-war than FDR. He was FDR on steroids. If you want to talk about progressivism, is what Tusli would be. In other words, he understood for the New Deal to be what it was meant to be, you cannot prop up wars or other Western empires, or let corporations get away with murder, which is what we saw. The corporations were responsible for a Holocaust. That's how bad these people are. And these are things that need to be discussed. And if we start discussing the root causes and how the media has been manipulated, how people's emotions and how their feelings have been manipulated, we can start getting to, okay, shit, didn't know, now I know, let's talk about solutions and strategies. That's what we need to get to, and very few people want to have that conversation, but we're going to try to start it.
What do you, Rahul Ray is asking a question, what do you consider the possibility of Trump being re-elected right now as things stand after the debates?
Man, so if they continue to cheat, he is absolutely going to win. They're giving Trump ammo every single time they pulled the shit that they pulled in the last debates, turning off Andrew Yang's mic, silencing Tulsi Gabbard's mic, trying to get Bernie Sanders with the gotcha question while simultaneously trying to prop up Warren as if she's the next Bernie Sanders. Those are things that will get Trump reelected. Now, I will say there's a caveat, and I'm actually going to do a video on this tonight where I'm going to lay out exactly why I think that Tulsi Gabbard is going to win this election. And it's, believe it or not, it's actually not all that far-fetched if you understand politics and the way our country has voted in the past.
Right.
And if anybody has been paying attention to my channel, I've been predicting the outcomes in this particular election before the election even started. I talked about how Tulsi was going to blow up. I talked about how she was going to hit the debate stage. I said verbatim in January when she first announced that Tulsi was going to be the #1 trending topic on Google. The first night of the debates, no matter if she had 30 seconds or 30 minutes. I said that because unlike the rest of these people out here, for one, I actually care about solutions. I can see things from an objective lens.
Right.
And I've been involved in political strategy for quite some time where you have to take into account a lot of extenuating circumstances that a lot of other people don't know how to take into account. These things where Ann Coulter, Lee Stranahan, Tucker Carlson, and other people, there was a former Trump strategist, they're all saying like, Tulsi is dope and she has the best chance. Trump strategist said, oh, Trump doesn't want to see Tulsi in a debate. Trump
probably doesn't. Yeah.
No. Oh, bro. She was the reason he pulled the CIA out of Syria, and then because she was so successful at persuading him, they banned her from the White House.
Right.
And basically fired Steve Bannon. He stayed left on his own accord, but they fired Steve Bannon because Steve Bannon was the one who organized that meeting.
Right.
And look what it led to. So like Trump knows not to name someone else who could call Trump a bitch on Twitter and Trump would respond. Whole bitch, bro. You're Saudi Arabia's bitch. Yeah. Straight the fuck up. and Trump don't say nothing about it. That shit got 140 or 50,000 likes, like 100,000 retweets.
Right.
You don't see it. It got even more responses. You don't see it, Trump. Do you really not see it, Trump? You know that she knows exactly what the fuck is taking place. She knows who you're answering to, and she knows how to break you down at your core. And he knows this,
Right.
and that's why he's scared of her. He won't even mention her name.
That's yeah, that is interesting. I mean, that's a good point. I never really thought about that. Like, he's never really come out and, faced off against her or said something to her on Twitter or anything like that. That is interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Will jump ship if they go through Tulsi's Twitter. They'll jump ship.
Well, they are, right? Like, you remember we were talking earlier about Ann Coulter, right? How Ann Coulter was like one of the first people on the Trump train back in like 2014, 2015. She's like, oh yeah, Trump's gonna win. I'm supporting Trump. Build the wall, rah, 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 all that stuff. Whatever you think about Ann Coulter, I'm not saying Ann Coulter's a great person or whatever. I'm just saying that you look at people like Ann Coulter, you look at some of the biggest like Trump loyalists that you can think of, and all of them after the debates was like, whoa, Tulsi, and saying some good stuff right there.
And remember, a lot of these people who love Trump were considered to be outside of the establishment, even Ann Coulter.
Right.
He portrayed himself as that, and he turned out to bring people like Elliot Abrams, Pompeo, Mad Dog Mattis when he was there.
Right.
They know who these people are. That's why they didn't want Trump to bring them in. He did it anyway. And then he purged basically everybody who helped get him there.
Right.
And they know Tulsi's. You'll run your campaign how you'll run your White House. Yeah. Tulsi's campaign is made up of close family members, close family friends, former independent journalists, and independent influencers. Before anybody gets a ticket to the debate, the independent community got it. Right. She gave one to myself, Jimmy Dore, Michael Tracy, the Gravel teens, even just for Gravel endorsing her. Her sister, her husband, her mother-in-law, her volunteers that have done a lot for her, let her stay at their house when she had no money to stay in a hotel. These are the people she continuously brings around. These are the people that she confides in.
Yeah.
So what do you think she's going to govern like? What do you think her administration is going to look like? They're going to look like, in some way, form, or fashion, the people that she's grown to trust. And she will, unquestionably, if she feels like she can't trust you, she'll fire your ass. Yeah. Like, she did it already. She did it the day before her announcement in Hawaii. They felt like they couldn't trust some firm that they had hired because they claimed to be progressive. Gone. Right. So she has the discernment to see even when somebody's pretending to be an ally, but they're not really.
Right.
So that scares, that is intriguing to people who consider themselves outsiders. It scares the establishment because they know, at least with Bernie, he's going to bring in Democrats. Right. Like I said, unfortunately, the fact of the matter is you're going to run your White House like you run your campaign. He's going to bring in Democrats. He's going to bring in the Democratic establishment in a lot of key areas, and they're going to actively undercut him. He'll get a lot done, but the military-industrial complex will still be dominant.
Right.
Tulsi's administration will be different. Maybe, I think Bernie would be in it. Ro Khanna probably wouldn't make it. Nina Turner would be in it. Nina Turner is a staunch outsider.
Right.
Some of the other people that he had on his staff probably will not make it.
Wow.
There are people who ask me if I would be in that administration, and I probably would. Not because Tulsi loves me or something like that, because I do consider her at this point like a big sister, and when we talk offline outside of politics, we think a lot alike, which is how we've arrived at these
right.
very similar but very different paths onto the same to the same goal, and she just wants somebody around that she could trust.
Right.
And that's the ultimate thing for her. Because you can do that when you have good instincts, when you're once again, 99% of the time, she's the smartest person in the room. Like, and that's not an exaggeration. Anybody who's ever been around her understands that. The time that she's not is because maybe I'm in the room, okay? Maybe Michael Tracy's also in the room, maybe somebody from my shows, because we see politics the same way, and that's why she agrees with us. That's why she doesn't mind taking our advice. That's why she reaches out to us for influence as far as policy is concerned, making sure she's understanding the issues correctly, because it's hard when you have no one else around you to challenge. Who can challenge her?
Right.
Especially on foreign policy. So she reaches out to other vets things like that in the independent community. These
what
are
I
all
find so
important.
interesting. Sorry, what I find so interesting about this whole situation is, are they? You know, from the Democratic side, when I try to look at this, look at how the media is working with the Democrats and how the Democrats' internal functioning, are they trying to win, or are they trying to get brownie points? Because if you're trying to get brownie points, fine, do what you're doing right now. You'll get tons of brownie points. But if you're trying to win, isn't the best way to win is to try and like support the candidate who's going to steal Trump's votes from right under his nose? Isn't that a good way to win? Don't you think?
Yep. Only if you have control of that candidate, though. Because the reason they want to win is so they can get their jobs back, right? They want to be back in the White House. They want to have control over the media again. They want to have control of they want the DNC. The people who join the DNC, they ultimately join it so they can have a spot in the White House. Problem is, Tulsi doesn't like the DNC. The DNC doesn't like her. Tulsi doesn't like the Democrats. Democrats don't like her. Yeah. Tulsi doesn't like Republicans either. Don't worry. The Republicans don't like her. The problem with all their problem is that everybody else loves her. If you meet Tulsi in person, that's it. You're won. It's over. I've seen her turn half of a room full of Bernie supporters in LA. Half of a room. Because everybody in LA, which is dope. They all go out to support both of the candidates. They all go out to organize for both of the candidates because both of their messages are important. But I saw her turn a room full of Bernie supporters into Tulsi supporters instantaneously. People in the house, they all came over afterwards. All the activists who helped organize the event, they're sitting staring at a wall like, damn, bro. I really thought I really did, y'all. But man, what are my people going to say? What are my friends going to say if I don't vote? Man, but Tulsi just, bro. Like people in the front row crying. About every time I've ever seen her speak, they're crying when they listen to her speak. Really? Because the charisma they're always thinking about is the Bernie charisma, Cory Booker, people, Cornel West, kind of they're loud. Like I'm loud when I give my speeches. I'm very demonstrative when I give my speeches, and that's fine. That's my type of charisma. Tulsi's different, man. You hear her speak, and she's appealing to your humanity.
Right.
She's like, help me, please get there. Help me explain this to the rest of the world about why this is so important. I can't do this without you. That's what it sounds like. And she's shedding light on issues that some of the older generation who have been activists for quite some time, they've been waiting for presidential candidates to call out the intelligence community. Right. They've been waiting for someone to call out these bullshit wars unequivocally, while simultaneously supporting Medicare for all, while simultaneously, dodging the labels. Yeah. I'm one who, I hear when somebody says, what economy do you think is better, socialist or capitalist? I don't know. How about we observe the country, figure out what methods work, what methods would not work, and have a mixed economy like a fucking sane person? What the hell? Like, that's how I am. Right. So I get it. I hate when people try to put me into the box, put me into a box. I'm a leftist. I consider myself a progressive at the same way I consider myself a Christian, right? I believe in the teachings of Jesus and how he went about living his life. So when I mean Christian, I mean strictly Christ-like. I don't mean I'm going to worship some God and punish and hate on everybody who doesn't worship the same God I worship. That's a whole different, that's religion. So the same thing when it comes to
That's very interesting that you make that distinction. I wonder how many people do. That's very interesting.
Very, very, very few. Yeah, they don't know the teachings of Jesus. Jesus preached against religion. A lot of people don't know that. So I studied Jesus as a philosopher, as what a lot of people would refer to as a quote unquote Renaissance man. I think the miracles that were probably exacerbated and exaggerated to prove a point are literally the same things that you've seen Da Vinci and Da Vinci and a lot of these other people who were a combination of not only philosophers, but scientists, architects, artists. That was Jesus. Literally the same thing. I turned water into wine. Miracle. No, motherfucker, that's science. What the hell? Like, and the way he was shunned by society when he's saying, you're not really a king, you're full of shit. You're not really a king, you're full of shit. Speaking out against the establishment, the natural conclusion was that the only way you can see the establishment for what it is usually is at some point you are part of it. And then you also know how to dismantle it because you know how they think and how their people think. And Jesus was demonized in the same way every other Renaissance man who was against society was demonized. But I don't think that he was like some crazy miracle worker. I think that he was literally a philosopher like you would see in any other society that was demonized in the same way. But if you look at his teachings, the same way we study Socrates, Plato, and the like, that's what I follow. So when it comes to
Right.
progressivism, same thing. I want progress and the strict definition of progress. If that comes through at times fiscal conservatism, then I'm actually perfectly fine with fiscal conservatism. I think that we spend way too much money on the government for them to not do shit with our money. I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck we're paying for. We got to pay for our own roads. We have to pay for our taxes for our vehicles.
Yeah.
We got to pay for our healthcare. We have to pay for these buildings to get built. They offer subsidies at the local level to build stadiums. Like we're tax exempting churches, but we still have to pay for the worker. We got to pay MTA payroll taxes if you're in New York, if you use the metro. Like it's like, hold the fuck up, bro. And you got to pay tolls if you're in New York. So you're like, yo, what the fuck am I paying for? So fiscal conservatism in some ways is the way to achieve progress. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Right.
Anti-war is the only way we're going to be able to achieve progress overall. For everybody, no matter where you're at in the world, I'm for that. And these conversations, when they're talking about immigration, I talk about kids in the cages. That's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like a how did we get here person.
Right.
How did we get here? That's the only way we can find a solution. There are some people who are about the what about us and what about Obama? Okay, cool. I'm all about Obama started this shit too. So what are we gonna do to
How
talk
do
about
we end it? Yeah, we've spoken about how it started, but how do we finish it? That's the question. We're still talking about how it got started and who's responsible. Okay, but how do we move on? How do we get bipartisan support to end this practice? That's
I hate the
seems to be
labels.
talking about it.
I hate the labels because labels do have a function when they're used appropriately. But in politics, labels are used to put you in a box. It's used to identify, right? Oh, you're a Democrat. So as a Republican, I know I can just hate on everything you're saying because I'm going to disagree with all of it. You're a Republican. Same thing with the Democrats. But like, for example, in Florida, we have a Republican in office. I try to look at him through an objective lens. He did great on education. Surprisingly enough, he's done great on the environment. He built a coalition for the environment immediately. Sucks on some social issues. You take the good with the bad. There's going to maybe a Democrat next who comes in and is great on social issues, but maybe suck on a couple of other things. Take the good with the bad. It is what it is. You push the candidate left, you educate people, and you give them the power to fight, not based on the label that they put on themselves, but on the issues that need to be tackled at the time. And that's what Tulsi brings to the table. Even Marianne Williamson did a great job with that. Yang, even though I don't like some of his pro-corporation rhetoric, does a good job with trying to shed those labels as well. Bernie as well, even though he's kind of had to box himself in a little bit with the Democratic Socialist label. The reason why is because he's been called a Democratic Socialist his entire life, so it's going to back up. So I get why he has to do it. But even still, he wants a mixed economy as well, and doesn't really try to box himself in with a political label. So that's where we should be going.
Right.
Stop trying to pretend like this is a fucking sports game.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems more like, we're just trying to protect this club. We built this little exclusive country club, and nobody that doesn't belong to the club or nobody who doesn't, fit the quote unquote values of the club is allowed, even if it'll help the club get better.
What kind of attack is they're not a real? Bernie's not even a real Democrat.
Yeah, like it's just so silly. It's just so silly. Like use the resources that you have available, man. Why wouldn't you? If you're trying to win, if you're going around the country telling people that you're trying to win, use the people that are actually going to win you the election. You're trying to promote the people who are going to get absolutely battered by Trump again. Absolutely, you're playing right into his hands again.
It'll be embarrassing.
Yeah.
It'll be embarrassing. He will actually win by more. People, I'm telling you, I saw that I don't know if you got to see the first rally that he held in Orlando.
Oh yeah,
Look,
yeah, I did.
Bro, that shit was not a game. Nope. 70, I want to say it was 20 plus, or it was whatever the max capacity was of the building, according to the turnstiles. That's what he got. Had 100,000 people requested to be there. Some people waiting outside 48 hours. That type of dedication cannot be underestimated, because I saw what that type of dedication did for Bernie. And if Bernie doesn't win, Tulsi doesn't win, it's over. You got another 4 years, and you're not going to be able to impeach him.
Oh yeah,
The
good luck
Democratic
with
Party
that.
will probably be done. That's good. The Democratic Party will probably be done. And it's funny because they also haven't realized, bro, progressivism is a moneymaker. I've had people reach out to me to do reality television shows
Right.
dedicated to talking about activism and progressivism. AOC has created a whole caricature of pretending to be as progressive as she can possibly be on a lot of issues. Look at Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, in any other scenario, probably would be demonized by everybody, but because she's an anti-war progressive, whenever the Democrats and Republicans try to attack her, people from all backgrounds and all ideologies came to her defense because of her anti-war message.
Right.
And so progressivism is in the Ayanna Pressley used to be a Hillary supporter, realized like, oh, this is fucking stupid. Why? I felt like that because of my limited bubble. She got out of the bubble. Same thing. Not Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison's one of them, but what's her name? Kimberly Ellis in California, running for the California Democratic Party chair. She used to be a Hillary supporter, realized, oh, this is fucked up. And of course, her support quadrupled the moment that she decided to join the Bernie movement.
Right.
So there is actual money, there is influence in progressivism. You have to spend we spend our resources fighting and moving forward. You have to spend the majority of your fucking resources trying to stop us from taking, from making influence on elections or policies or whatever. Like, at that point where you have to spend the majority of your time to do that, maybe you should just try to use it for your own personal gain. Yeah. It happens. John Lewis used the civil rights movement for his personal gain. It is what it is.
Yeah.
John Lewis is a fucking shitbag. He's a dirtbag who tried to say that Hillary Clinton was at the civil rights movement, even though she was a Goldwater girl who campaigned on segregation, literally. And Bernie was actually at the civil rights movement. But he figured out, man, look, I may be a punk ass, but this civil rights movement is going to, and because of where he was at, because who he was by, and the connections he had, he realized I could use this for my advantage and propel myself into a permanent image. That no matter what I do wrong, people will say, but he's a civil rights activist.
Right.
AOC's figured it out. So why haven't the Democrats said, you know what, shit? I know this might hurt us temporarily. Some of our donors might, but hell, if we do the right thing, maybe we don't even need those donors anymore.
Right.
Maybe I can still get rich off of this.
Yeah.
Maybe I can still be fine. Look at what happened with AOC. She got a whole fucking Netflix special from being progressive.
Yeah, that's true.
Still, once again, it makes you wonder, like, y'all are idiots. Y'all have to be. You need to fire whoever your consultants are.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they're, it really does seem like they're, at least at the moment, it does seem like they're more concerned about winning brownie points than actually winning the election. And I feel like if there's any Democratic supporters out there that, good faith Democratic supporters, of course, and that genuinely want to see some change, that genuinely want to get rid of Donald Trump, it really should be worrying them. It really should be making them think, hey man, are we gonna win this, or are we just trying to just play this pat each other on the back game? How much pats on the backs can we get? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, because pats on the backs are not gonna win you elections. Sadly, they're really not. Donald Trump was not interested in getting pats on the back, and he's president right now.
So, well, he was interested in coming at your neck. Yeah. I got a question for you. So I watched one of your Instagram videos, by the way. I think it was about covering the election. And it was actually a really good video. I learned a lot about what was going on and how they were trying to basically spin it on Modi and all that shit, which is crazy. Because I'm like looking at this shit, I'm like, wow, I don't understand how Americans can't look at this and see clearly that there are a lot of similarities. Yeah. But it's also kind of sad that clearly India's democracy probably works better than ours at this point. That's not saying that's fucking horrible. Y'all didn't even have public bathrooms until recently, and y'all democracy. So there was something that you had said about Muslims that was interesting to me, because I know as a Hindu, you kind of like, I think y'all basically find your faith in whatever you choose to find it in whatever helps you evolve. Yeah. But you said that basically that the guy had he basically said what he had said about Islam as an attack. And you agree with him to a degree, saying that, of course, because, this person is Muslim, then he believes he has the ultimate, that's the ultimate religion. Of course, he feels this way about other people, that he's the ultimate, something like that. So
Who was the guy?
look, dog. There's
Okay.
so many damn names that you be saying, dog. I can't even. Don't even ask me.
Right,
But it was
right.
it was around the time. So I was curious. So what makes you feel that like this particular gentleman may be emblematic of every Muslim? Because I know that kind of dude was kind of the person that guy was attacking. I think it was
Right.
a Hindu guy was attacking a Muslim guy. I looked him up. I'm like, oh, that dude's kind of a douchebag. I understand why he was attacking him personally.
Right.
But like, so what makes you feel that like a majority of Muslims feel the same way as that particular person? Because I'm the type of person that likes to stay away from generalizing
Sure.
in a sense,
Sure.
because it can get really muddy. 'Cause I know all Christians aren't Dylan Roof who shot up a black church.
Right, of course.
Like I don't. There might be a crazy Hindu guy in Hawaii that
Oh yeah.
they try to associate with Tulsi just because she's Hindu.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want. So I was curious, is what like why do you feel like maybe that may be something that the majority of Muslims feel?
Well, I always try to make the distinction. Even in that video, I think I know the video that you're talking about. Even in that video, I make the distinction between people that are trying to live their lives and just be who they are, and who don't take the teachings from the book extremely seriously. And that's what I said in that
I
video
think
as
you
well.
did. Yeah, you
That
definitely
if
did.
they did take the teachings of the book very seriously, then we would be at war with 1.5 billion people, and that would be no fun. And so, you know, yeah,
It's true. That's
yeah.
true.
So that's what I said. And when it comes to the problem that I was talking about is that there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that just want to live their lives, go to work, raise their families, live with their neighbors, so and so, and they're Muslim also, and they're so and so also. But then there are also a lot of people that try to take what is given in the book and what is mentioned in the book, particularly when it comes to people who do not believe, the so-called quote unquote non-believers, particularly when there's behavior that is prescribed towards the non-believers, which is very harmful towards the non-believers, particularly non-believers that are not of the book. So
Yeah.
there's people in the in the Quran that are considered people of the book, like the Jews and the Christians. So
Yes. Abrahamic.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they don't like them either, but they have still a higher stock in the Islamic
Yeah.
world than the people that are not of the book. For example, Hindus. So
Yeah.
for people that are not of the book, there are certain crimes prescribed. There are certain attitudes that are prescribed in the book that you should have, that you must have to be a true Muslim. And this is again, according to the book, certain attitudes that you must have towards those people. And my problem is that, yes, I know that there's a ton of people that do not take that part seriously and that actually love their Hindu neighbors. There are people like that. I grew up in a state which called Bihar, which has a high percentage of Muslim people. So I grew up with neighbors who are Muslim who never tried to kill me. So
That's good. I'm glad you got to go.
yeah, so I got a good roll of the dice, and they were good people who I went to school with, and so there are people like that. But then, as long as those teachings exist, there are always going to be people that are going to take a very literal interpretation of those teachings, and that's what I have the problem with, and that's what you see in areas like that's a major problem that you see in South Asia right now. In India, that's a major problem that you see in Pakistan.
Well, yeah, it's all over the Middle East, and a lot of that is propagated, quite honestly, by the U.S.
Sure.
Because I don't know if you're familiar with the University of Nebraska in Pakistan that we used to have. It was a satellite campus.
What? No.
Yeah, bro. That's how we
There's a
created
University of
Radical Islam.
Nebraska campus in
We
Pakistan.
we created the contemporary version of Radical Islam in the 50s. I want to say it's 50s or 60s to
Right.
combat, because we wanted rebels to fight the Soviet Union so we could say that it wasn't us.
Right.
The only way we could do that is to radicalize people and make it so that, hey, we're coming to steal your holy land and all that shit. And so we literally created a satellite campus at the University of Nebraska. We wrote the book on Radical Islam and we distributed it and created quote unquote rebels. So like a lot of that was perpetuated, because violence in the region was really, really,
Right.
it was indiscriminate. Muslims were going crazy, Christians were going crazy. I can't really speak. I don't know about Southeast Asia, but basically everybody was going, like even the Portuguese at that time were like wilding, because the Portuguese and the Ottoman Empire were going at it all the time.
Right.
So, but when it got like hyper focused, where you got to the point of we deserve dominion over everybody, of the United States had a lot to do with that. But what I was going to say was, don't you think it's unfair though, because there are people who they don't even have a book to follow, but they actually go completely, they actually start behaving antithetical to your religion, that the Hindu fascists, as people like to call them, that basically are a bad representation of what you represent.
Sure.
And some Muslims would even say, well, look, they don't have a book, but look, they're still nationalists, they're still dickheads, they still try and talk down to us, and they actually have nefarious intentions. And we wouldn't want to say to people, oh, that's a dominant representation or even a significant representation of all Hindus. It's like, no, that person is just a shitty person.
Right. No,
So that's why I was
right. You're absolutely right there, and there are shitty people on the quote-unquote Hindu side as well, without a shadow of a doubt. But if we look at history, if we look at the past 1,500 years, you look at the Hindu history in the South Asia region, and the Hindu history is not. Yeah, there is evidence of discrimination. There is evidence of war, without a doubt, as it is across the world.
Yeah, across the world.
When do you start seeing true, like, large-scale bloodshed, large-scale violence, large-scale conversion activities? I'm talking in a confined space. Let's just talk about South Asia for now, because that's sort of what the question is based around. In South Asia, when do you start seeing large-scale bloodshed, large-scale conversion activities, large-scale slavery, and sort of that kind of hate on an almost industrial scale? You see that after the Muslim invasion of India, and there are kings in India that have clearly quoted that I am doing so and so to these people because my book commands me to do so and so to these people. And the biographers
but Christianity
of those books
has done the same thing, where they use that because that's the only way you could galvanize the troops.
Yeah.
And it's not, what it's really about. Religion is a prophet when it comes to the Abrahamic religions. All of them, all three of them: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But I would say that's true. But when you're so think about it from this perspective. When you're a soldier back in the day in Europe, are you really fighting for your king? Nah, motherfucker, you ordered me to go do this shit, and there's not really a lot of other options for me to have a thriving to thrive in this economy. It's are you an able-bodied male? Okay, good, cool. You're gonna go to war. Does that mean all of them are shitty people? Probably not. But it doesn't mean like 2 or 3 leaders were shitty. We're really, really shitty people.
Right.
Like it's like America, right? A lot of the highest officials that we have are shitty. They're bad people. Does that mean that everybody? Because you could really make the whole argument that the same thing you're saying about Islam, you could say that about America, right? In the last century, who's causing the majority of the problems in the world? Not even just Southeast Asia or the Americas. It's been America. Right. Does that mean that people should start demonizing Americans individually? No, and I think that people, for the most part, have done a good job not doing that. I just feel like that's maybe a philosophy we should be consistent with when we're talking about any particular group.
No, I agree with you there. But what I'll say to you is that when you look at the American Constitution does not explicitly call for murder of people in the Middle East. That's not what the American Constitution is saying. The American Constitution isn't telling you that go to the Middle East and murder people.
Yeah, but it says the opposite. So like I said, so let me be clear. Most religions I have a problem with. So let me be clear about that.
Sure.
And for the reasons that you're laying out, by the way, that's how a lot of wars have been started. A lot of bloodshed has been justified. But I believe that it's important at times to separate the religion from the people.
Of course.
And sometimes separate the past from the people who are practicing it now, who don't want war any more than myself, who don't want hate any more than, to spread what you do. And like I've dealt with this with Tusli, where people, maybe one bad person is a Hindu in India, and they're like, well, clearly Tusli is a Hindu nationalist in a cult. Like, what? Oh, how do you get to that? Well, that's what this particular person who wrote this down on a piece of paper said, and he follows it. Tusli must believe in the same, which is bullshit.
Right.
And I feel like in order for us to start bridging that gap, because a lot of Muslims, like you acknowledge, they think that, okay, yeah, these motherfuckers is fucked up, but they may be only Muslim culturally. In other words, the things that they eat, the holidays they practice, the language they speak, that might be it's just history for them in a way for them to kind of network and things like that. Very similar to what we see in Judaism and in
Sure.
the States. And maybe they feel the same way you do. Like, hey, man, I don't agree with that shit either. And I would really love to kind of bridge that gap
Right.
so we can start acknowledging some of these issues. And I know because I mean we've talked about a lot of this stuff in the past, and I know that for the most part you are an advocate of everybody in India, and you were even telling me about programs that have primarily helped Muslims, and so it was just something I wanted to talk about.
This is what I think about when we're talking about, when we're talking about religious ideas and religious philosophy. This is what I think about. I think if you, I don't have a problem with it, but the problem arises when people claim, so and so claims to be the only arbiter of the so-called truth, and nobody else is allowed to have that information. That's when the problems arise. I believe that if you want to be a religious person, then yeah, be a religious person treat religion like a supermarket. Like I'm going to go into the supermarket. I want to take this because I like this. I want to take that because I like that. I want to take this because I like this. I want to take this Tide because I like Tide more. Treat
Long as you
religion
don't
like
eat.
a supermarket. The problem is like you're right now there's certain ideologies that say Tide is the only way. If you use any other detergent, then you're basically an asshole. And I have a problem with that. I have a genuine problem with that.
And that's honestly true, and something I preach against. And I think at that point, then because of you being educated enough and being able to speak to people, then the best way to go about kind of dismantling that idea is saying, look, let's sit down and talk about this, and let's talk about what we all disagree with. Like maybe shit, I would even suggest having Muslims on the channel who agree with you. Like I don't agree with that bullshit. Like because that's how I'm not religious, but this what you deal with in India as far as the weird relationship between Hindu and Islam. We have a very similar relationship here with people who are not religious in Christianity, and then Christians and Muslims. And a lot of the way we've been able to bridge that gap, notice we don't really have terrorist attacks at all. Most of our terrorist attacks are actually committed by white Christians.
Right.
So similar problems, but we try to be careful not to demonize every Christian because of that one thing. Although the teachings of Christianity do have a lot to do with why they thought it was okay
Right.
to commit said terrorist attack, like with Dylan Roof and the Charleston Church. But then the only way we can have an open and honest conversation is if we acknowledge, like, look, that's not everybody. And then two, sit down and say, look, let's be honest. We don't necessarily agree. Both of us don't agree everything about whatever religion we practice. You don't see, our country is dominantly Christian. How many hijabs or head covers do you see being worn? We're dominantly Christian, and yet how many people here still eat pork? How many people here are sacrificing the damn lamb every time they commit a sin? Like they don't practice every aspect of the religion. That's perfectly fine.
Right.
You've got to practice it within context. Like some of these rules were made for the religion back then. Islam
exactly.
was the new boy on the block whenever they first came out. They knew why they created the shit. Like, let's be honest. Y'all thought it was a money grab. So you're like, man, we got to start dominating turf fast because we're about 2,000-3,000 years too late. To be honest. So they got rhetoric in the book that basically said, hey, we got to go after everybody. Whoever ain't wearing blue or whoever ain't wearing blood, you know what I'm saying? We got to go, we got to run up on their set. That's basically what just happened. And so that's the philosophy that the majority of people do not agree with. And so I think the best way to go about addressing it is basically, sitting down and having conversations with people.
Absolutely. And I've talked to people from a Muslim background on my show before as well. And
That's dope.
And we've discussed these issues. And every time I talk about this issue, I don't know if you've watched those videos like extensively, but every time I've talked about
I've watched
this
a few
issue,
of your videos, and I disagree with you.
I will always make a distinction between Muslims as people and Islam as an ideology. I said I have a problem. I have a very fundamental problem with the ideology because the ideology doesn't even recognize my right to exist. But the people are people. It's like if you take a glass of water. If you take a glass, right? If you put water in that glass is great. If you put poison in that glass is bad. But it's at the end of the day, it's just a glass. The glass isn't bad. What's in the glass is what's bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the same way about the Republican Party. So I know a lot of good conservatives, bro. I really do. But the Republican Party is shit. The Democratic Party is
That's
shit.
exactly the point.
A lot of great Democrats, but the Democratic Party is overall shit. But the way, like I said, but the way I've been able to make some gains in people from both sides is by saying, look, let's sit down. What are our goals? What is your
Right.
goal as a person? What is my goal as a person? Okay. Do you feel like, that certain people are bad for trying to push this part of the religion? And what do you think solutions are? This is what I've said. This is what I think. And I have a problem with my people doing this. So
Right.
like I talk about the left all the time on my channel. I talk about the right often, but I talk about the left. Like y'all be fucking tripping because I don't believe you can't tell somebody else to clean up their house if your own house ain't clean. You feel me?
Yeah.
So and I think that's a good way to start dialogue is basically acknowledging our personal faults. And saying, look, we're all human at the end of the day,
Right.
and taking it from there. So I do appreciate because I've seen several of your videos and you do make the distinction often.
Right.
That video, and like I said, I wish I could remember the name of the guy.
Right.
That video was a little bit more focused, and I think, to be fair to you, it was an Instagram post, and so it was very chopped up.
I see. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So to be fair to you, it was an Instagram post. So that
Right.
wasn't the entire video. The entire video did go into more detail. But that's dope though that you have other people on and you
Yeah.
have those conversations. It's something I think we need to do more often. Once again, I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah,
I know
man,
it's not
absolutely.
what your channel generally discusses, but these are, all these issues, especially when it comes to this election and how America intervenes in other people's politics, they affect everybody,
Right.
and it affects your audience and as much as it affects mine. And so I'm glad that you bring me on. We definitely got to get you back on the channel sometime soon, man.
Yeah, man. Name the day and time. I'll be there.
Sounds good, bro.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks for doing this today. I've taken too much of your time with your 4th of July anyway. I'll let you go get your drink on. And thanks for doing this today, man. I really appreciate it. It was fun talking, and hopefully, we can talk when the next debates are happening too.
For sure. They're going to be, I don't know if they've announced a date, but I do
don't
know they're
think
going to
so
be
yet.
end of July
Yeah.
in Detroit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
going to be awesome. I'm excited about it. I'll be in Vegas. If anybody's in Vegas and you want to come to any of the events I'm throwing out there for Tulsi, let me know. I will be in Detroit. Shortly after, I should be in New York. Fundraiser for my nonprofit. So
Right.
be busy month in July, but it's cool. Let's
Yeah.
celebrate independence from Great Britain today.
Right. Right.
You're Indian. I'm sure you know exactly what that looks like.
Oh yeah. But yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Go check out Niko's channel. I will leave the link to Niko's channel in the description down below as well. Go check it out. Great chat again today, and I look forward to having this chat again in the future. All right, guys. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy. I'll see you guys again.